I'm not going to say much because I met with Mr. Hanlon last week and we had a great talk, and I wanted to thank Mr. Hanlon and Ms. McDonald and Mr. Hebb and all the volunteers and participants for bringing this forward. I know considerable amount of work and feedback was put into this to update the last economic strategy, and I know how I was on that committee, and it was a lot of work, and we know that it's on a volunteer basis, so we appreciate that. I like the vision, the goals, the supporting objectives, so I think it's great. I'm not going to repeat any of that. One thing that I would like to see, and I was a board member quite a while ago, and I mentioned this to you, Mr. Hanlon, is when you go to the board or you look online and see who the board is, it's a lot of the usual suspects, the people that are on many other boards. And if we want to attract university students or community college students to stay here, I think you should reach out, and I would like to have a student on the board. I was buying clothes in a shop one time, and a girl recognized me, and she was from an international student, and she said, I would like to stay. And I said, well, we have a connector program, and she said, yes, but they're trying to connect you with banks, and I'm not interested in that. And I said, well, why don't you provide feedback so that we can make this connector program more robust and to fulfill more people's requirements. So I would like to see that. I know we've got some great talent there, so I'm not diminishing that. You could also have a member of Fusion who's, what is that? I was part of in that age group before. When they first started, but I'm over 40 now, that's for sure. But they have different groups. So if you could have a university student and a Fusion member, I think that would be great. And if they can't go to all the meetings, have a liaison. So if you're having a discussion about things, they have subcommittees. They could meet and come back and provide information. The other thing is, I mentioned to Ron, Mr. Hanlon, that years ago, Greater Halifax Partnership, now Halifax Partnership, used to come to council. And I found it was very positive because when we were the hub city, and you had a one-day session with the Conference Board of Canada, but you came in and you explained, so when people in rural Nova Scotia are saying, why are you putting money into the convention centre, you're talking about the economic impacts, that the dollar that you spend in Halifax benefits not only all of Nova Scotia, but Atlantic Canada, and you talk about what the hub cities are. And now, our number 2 position that they're predicting. So I would like you to come to council, and I'd hate calling it CPED or whatever, the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee, we're not all on. We've got 6 committees. I know I'm on 3 and subcommittees. We don't have time to go to them. And when you get this huge agenda, I mean, our package on Friday looks like, we had a big score from the store or something. I mean, they're huge, and you have a lot of things to read. So you may not have the time. So what I would like to see is a quarterly report presented to council. It's a positive news story. It can match up with how you're doing on it. And the third person I'd like to see on your board is maybe somebody from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business or somebody from representing the small business, not the Nova Scotia Powers of the world and the universities. So I think this is great, and I'd like to have more of a dialogue. So I would like to see you here 4 times a year, if that's possible, even just a 10-minute presentation. This is good news, and like the mayor always says, we have to tell people the positives. So if you come out and talk about our population growth and how we're doing with GDP and just some of the positives, and I know you have that on your website, but people watch council. I'm surprised at the amount. And it's a good positive way to get the message out. And lastly, I know quite often it's, the anti-rural development and, what do they call it again? Developing in the rural areas, and everything's supposed to go downtown, urban sprawl. And one thing when Citgo Financial came here, and it didn't, come to fruition because of, Singapore, and they were looking at us in Singapore, and we had a big meeting, and I asked the person from Citgo, what experiences have you had in the past that were failures? And he said that you can't have everybody work downtown. You've got your financial specialists, your well-paying people downtown, but your support staff should be in rural areas, outside. So I think there's a role in the plan to look at that. And then another Cisco, so that's Citgo, and not Cisco the right order, but Cisco Foods. It came to council in Canberra, and we voted on it, and they moved their head offices to Burnside. We can't have a food company with all these trucks moving downtown. So I think part of the plan has to recognize that there's a necessity of suburban and rural inputs to our economic development plan. So I wanted to thank you very much, and I think the plan is great, and I appreciate the updates. Thank you.